neutral state and really focus on the opponent.
What's the biggest thing you've seen with Johnny from true freshman to what you've seen in the offseason now?
John has a couple things. And when you ask me what I've seen, the first is something you do see with your eyes, and that's the change he's made in his body. So as a true freshman, last year, at the end of the season, he was 196 pounds, and he's almost 225 pounds right now. So, ESPN did an all-access 30-minute special on our program material yesterday, and they had a couple little segments in there where they had a couple of our fullbacks showing off their mustaches. And I think they went over and grabbed John O'Corn, and they had to zoom in really, really close to see a little bit of facial hair above his lips. So, he's matured a little bit physically, and what you notice with the work he's done in the weight room is his arm strength is increased. I think you're going to see him be more durable, if there's such a thing in quarterback, in terms of the added body weight. It's not going to slow him down one bit either. I think off the field, his development now, because he's got some credibility within our program, having started 11 games last year and played well, it is improved also. His leadership role, he's got the respect of every young man in our program, but it's also something at that position, the spotlight's always on him, and it's something he's worked at this summer. He went over to he was a counselor at the Manning Passing Academy for 4 days in Louisiana, had a great experience, and hung around. There were 30 college quarterbacks that were there as counselors, got a chance to hang around some older guys, took great notes, was around the Mannings as well. And so that's been a big area of improvement that's very, very noticeable. And then certainly within our offense. Last year, being a true freshman starter and not the starter when the season began, we didn't get him the entire playbook. We needed to make sure each game that he was comfortable with what we were doing offensively and schematically, and we weren't going to try to put too much on his plate. So now that he's been here a full year, went through spring practice back in March and April, he's got the entire playbook, so he feels very, very comfortable. And again, everything I've described right now within our program has been very noticeable.
Coach, you have a surplus of receivers this year. And can you just talk a little bit about that position and how you plan on using some of them?
Well, we feel, the question about our depth of receiver, we feel like we've got tremendous depth, and it's fun to see guys that certainly like to play football first and foremost, and guys that are at the receiver position a little bit bigger than maybe we've had historically here, and still have great speed. So, our starting receivers, Greg Ward's going to start at the Z position, and again, it's a position that's relatively new to Greg. He's so athletic and so dynamic with the ball in his hands. I expect that he's going to have a very, very good year. Deontay Greenberry will be back inside again, and has had a great camp and had a really, really good summer as well. And you're going to see him on the field for most of the game on offense. He's a guy that probably won't come off the field very often. Daniel Spencer had an outstanding year last year, was voted captain a couple weeks ago by his teammates, and had as good a spring as anyone. And a year ago, we felt like he was the most improved student athlete in our program from his sophomore year to junior year, and I think he's taken the next step as well. So he's had a great August. I think he's going to improve his productivity in terms of catches and yards and touchdowns this year. And then over at what we call the X position, which is an outside receiver position, you can see DeMarcus Ayers, again, like Greg Ward, high school quarterback that was recruited here as a receiver. Not necessarily comparing that to Greg, but Greg's not a receiver. DeMarcus moved to receiver, was our kick returner last year, and also Marquis Ambles, who both play at the X position. So we've got tremendous depth. Stephen Dunbar is a true freshman from Louisiana that's going to rotate with Deontay at the Y position, and he's had an outstanding camp. He's big, he's physical, he's fast, very, very intelligent. Shane Ross, the young man, has been in our program since '98, and he's finally a senior, and he'll rotate in as well at the Z position. And Wayne Beatles, the young man, is walking in our program that played some for us last year, played on special teams, caught a touchdown against Central Florida. And he'll rotate with Daniel Spencer at the H position. So we feel like we've got really 8 to 10 young men in our program. Hayden Daniels is another one at the Y position that we feel really comfortable about playing and giving opportunities to guys that may be on the second or third on the depth chart, but keeping our starters fresh and allowing our receivers to run at full speed all game.
Well, with an extra year with a point being open and everything, are y'all going to try to even play even more up tempo and try to get more plays on?
Yes, we are.
You had some big experience on the left side of your line. What have you seen from those guys through all game?
Well, it's interesting, and we have, when you say we've got inexperience on the left side of the line, we've got a little bit of inexperience in terms of the game experience, if you will. So Ben Dew, the transfer from Hawaii, is going to start for us at left guard, and he was a starter at Hawaii, so he's got some college starting experience, and has had a great camp for us. He's got 2 years left, and he graduated from Hawaii in 3 years, and has 2 years left to be a junior this fall. Mecca Okafor, a young man that's been in our program, has Damien Paris. So within our program, and I've said this a couple of times, we know what we feel like they're going to do, but certainly the public hasn't seen them perform yet. So, those two, Mecca played actually for us as a true freshman a couple years ago, and he redshirted his sophomore year. And Mecca's going to see time both at left guard and at right guard. And again, got great confidence in Mecca. He's had a great camp as well. And Damien Harris will start for us at left tackle. He's a young man that came in a year and a half ago, redshirted last year. He's a junior as well, and Mecca's a junior as well. So, it's I think we'll look, that position group to me, the offensive line, I think publicly is going to be a pleasant surprise. I think within our program, it's not going to surprise anyone how well they play this season. And again, center is Bryce Redmond, be a 3-year starter. Our right guards will be Rodney Harper, and our right tackles will be Alex Cooper, a young man who hasn't played a whole lot of football in his life, and is extremely athletic and very talented, and very smart. So he's going to hold down the right tackle position. Again, in terms of playing games, he's played on some special teams. He played as a backup lineman the last couple of years. Came here about 240 pounds, and that's about 295. So. I'm excited about our offensive line. I'm excited for them to have the opportunity to go out and really play well together and just be a solid unit for us this year. Which again, I think on the outside may surprise some people, but it will not internally.
How's the running game looking this fall?
The running game, I think, is looking good. And right now we're undefeated, so. I can't comment too much further on how it looks, but I've said a number of times publicly and certainly privately within our offices, we've got to be able to run the football. And we've got to run it effectively, we've got to run it creatively, we can't be predictable, and we've got to play with our student athletes' strengths. And that's not just with our running back, but it's also with our offensive line. So we're going to see, I think people have asked me, when you talk about the tempo this year, you talk about some things philosophically with Travis Bush's offensive coordinator. People have asked me, are we going to see some changes? What's going to be the difference? How much are we getting away from what we've done in the past? And I think, I shouldn't say I think, I know people are going to say, wow, this is what it has looked like over the course of the last several years. And if someone's sitting in the stands and sees a couple of little tweaks maybe in the running game a little bit in terms of some schemes that we're going to bring, just again, the play group, the strengths of our student athletes. And that's something that we focused on in the spring, and we're doing a good job so far this fall.
Coach, team captains were named. What are your expectations for them on the field and off the field with this being a young team?
Well, and you know what? You said it, but I'm not going to say this year this is a young team. And again, just to respectfully disagree with the comment. I've said that for the last 2 years, and now I think we've got some experience in our program as well. And I think when you look at the team captains, it's always interesting as a coaching staff to look and see how many different student athletes received a significant number of votes. And for the second year in a row, we had 6 young men who were named captain. This year, 3 on offense, 3 on defense. Last year, you may remember Richard Nolan was a specialist for us and was named captain. But last year, we only had 2 of the 6 were seniors. This year, 4 of the 6 are seniors. Trayvon Stewart and Kenneth Farrow being the 2 junior captains. And we had a number of young men in our program receive 30 to 40 votes, and were not elected captain with 30 to 40 votes by the teammates. So that is a good sign. I've been in programs, this is my 20th year of coaching, I believe. I've been in programs before where the captains are very obvious, and 2 guys get 100 votes, and that's who you got. And while that may sound like a positive, in my opinion, that ends up being a negative, because you've got 120 student athletes in your program. In that case, they only see 2 leaders. And in our program right now, based on the votes, our student athletes see there's about 12 to 15 leaders. So when you have leadership from within your program, we talk to young men all the time. We'll be as good as you guys want us to be. And we are limited, if you will, we are limited by the NCAA as to how much time we can spend with our student athletes in meetings and practice. So when they leave here, when they're in the locker room, when they're going to eat, when they're studying, they've got to take ownership in the program. And you've got tremendous captains and tremendous leadership, and I think you've got a good start to the recipe for success.
What's your feel about your defense this year? Because they had such a great year last year, and they became this defense with an identity of making big plays, taking the ball away, giving your offense a chance. Have they embraced that? They're ready to build on that and more? Or, I mean, are you conscious of telling them, hey, last year's over, put it away, and let's move forward?
Well, a couple things. And first, I think one of the words you just used in the question, identity, is exactly right. And I think we feel like as a staff, and even going back and watching last year's games from game 1 through game 13, I think early in the year, I'm not sure we had the identity we did at the end of the season. And I said coming out of last year's spring practice, not this past spring, but the one before, that our defense was very, very confident. And people gave me strange looks when I said that, because the prior season we were, I think, 110th in scoring defense. But we saw a change going through that spring. We entered the season, and we played well early. We created turnovers early, but I don't think whether it's identity or whether it's confidence, I think that really came midway through the course of last season. And that's something when we talk about last year, just to reference the second part of your question. As coaches, or at least in our program, we do talk to our student athletes about last year's in the past, it's over, we got to move forward, whether it was a disappointing year or a successful year. And when we look at our defense, and on paper we've got 9 returning starters, losing the 2 starting corners from last year. We do have 3 young men returning this year that played significantly for us last year as backups. We have Lee Hightower and Tyler White that came in and were transfers that sat out last year. Howard Wilson is a true freshman that's going to see playing time for us as well at corner. So, we feel like we've got experience there. We've got young men that have made plays for us. When you talk about those turnovers, Trayvon Stewart made 10, created 10 himself. Adrian McDonald had 6 interceptions. So you've got young men back that took balls away, intercepted passes, recovered fumbles across the board, defensive line, linebacker, and defensive back. I had a number of people over the course of the offseason in interviews, various interviews, say, turnovers are cyclical. You'll get a bunch one year, and the next year you'll be down. And the following year you'll get a bunch. And I'm not, that's not how I operate. I know what last year is last year. This year we're going to coach, the same way we did. We're going to tweak some things as well in terms of how we coach, but we're going to continue to emphasize taking the football away and tackling in defense, which is what we felt like created those turnovers and the drop in scoring defense from 110th to 20th. And I'd be disappointed if we didn't create a lot of turnovers in defense for this year.
UTSA, they like to spread the field. Cam Jones, Tucker Carter gets on like 2 series, 2 series last year. Do you have confidence in those defensive backs coming back?
I do, and again, just like Coach Coker has confidence in Tucker Carter and Cam Jones, again, Tucker, I think, played in 5 games last year. We've studied his plays specifically. We've studied their offense certainly since last spring, But again, we've got experienced young men back there. Javon Stewart, here, we've got, I mentioned, at corner where we have, I think, some talented young men. William Jackson, who's a 6'1" corner. Lee Hightower's going to start at the other corner position, who's 6'2", and both can run and are very physical. So, we've got great confidence in our defense, and I think we've got tremendous depth and quality depth in our secondary as well. So it'll be, and again, you talk about UTSA and the weapons they have, you're exactly right. They spread it out. They can run the ball very effectively, and they've got great weapons at receiver as well. So it'll be, that will be a tremendous matchup.
How about your kicking game? You got your specialists, you got a very good punter to replace. How do you feel about that line this season?
We feel good about our kicking game, and it's something we emphasize quite a bit. The head coach here is a former kicking coach, so it's emphasized in our program quite extensively. And a couple of things. Marcus Sayers, in terms of our kickoff return, as a true freshman last year, doing it for the first time, was the conference player of the year, and is as good a kickoff return as I've ever had the opportunity and privilege to coach. Greg Ward ended up being a punt returner at the end of the last season. He will resume that role this year and put a lot more emphasis in camp on a punt return game, and I think that will improve. And when you talk about the specialists specifically, our long sample returns, could be a junior, our holder, Dylan Seibert from last year returns, Kyle Bullard, who ended up taking over the place kicking duties in the middle of the season last year, will be juniors in a great camp. And then when I talk about young men that had a great spring and an outstanding August, Ty Cummings falls in that category. So Ty, last year was a true freshman, played very, very limited in terms of kicking off for us, and is really hitting the ball well. Started last spring, continued through the summer, and has had a great camp, so he will handle the kickoffs for us. And the punting duties, both Dylan Seibert and Logan Piper, they're both juniors, and both have worked extremely hard over the summer. It's very, very evident that the work they put in over the summer, and I think we'll see both of them compete for us this season again.
Will that be like a platoon kind of thing? One specializes in longer.
In terms of one punt longer, I'm actually thinking about maybe putting them both back there. Put one on the right and a punter on the left. Our snapper, one's a former baseball player. Our snapper is actually amphibious, so he can snap at both directions. That was a joke, because people at home, Joseph Cortez at home is thinking amphibious, because they're amphibious. We'll see, but they'll both anticipate both of them.